Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. We are proudly presented by SPI Logistics, and I am your host, Blythe Brumleve. I'm happy to welcome in Dan Reiss. He is the Senior Vice President of Partnerships over at Manifest / Connective. It's one of I think the best conference in all of logistics. And we are here to talk about the conference and also the sales and marketing behind a big conference like that within our industry and just, conferences as a whole. So, Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. And I appreciate you channeling some of the warm Florida weather up here to the Northeast.
Oh, it's been such a miserable winter here in Florida because we have something I didn't know that existed. It's called a winter El Nino, where literally, I would say not literally, definitely almost every day for the past month, it has been cloudy and rainy. And cloudy? Yes, it's we're in the Sunshine State.
Did it dip below 72? Oh,
it froze the other night. So of course, we got the warnings.
I mean, it was in the teens over here the past few days. So
it's terrible. It's terrible. Oh. I'm already sick of it. I'm ready for it to be over with, but we have another potential freeze that's coming this weekend. So it's big news in Florida anytime it starts to freeze.
Well, at least here in Jersey, we can curl up with a nice, warm, good pizza or bagel. I know I can send some down to you. Right?
Oh, I would love a great, New York, New Jersey bagel, cream cheese. That it's the best in the world. I don't know how you guys do it. It's like you made a deal with the devil because there is no other place like it.
It was a trade-off. Good bagels, good pizza, bad taxes.
I mean, I guess that tax money has to go somewhere. So
exactly, it's government bagel production.
I'm a fan of big government when it comes to that regard. So I think that's a good trade-off. Now with Florida, I maybe we would trade off some things for, I guess that's probably another discussion. I probably don't want to go down.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole that we won't be recording.
There are a lot of ways we could go with that conversation. But Dan, you've spent, I think I was listening to an interview with you and Trey over on Standing Out on his podcast. And you said that you've been in the conference / logistics industry for 14 years. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And so how, well, I mean, has it that entire time been in managing conferences, or have you had other roles in logistics? How did you sort of find yourself in this position?
Well, I actually dropped out of college when I was studying business, and during a supply chain segment, I thought supply chain was really boring, and I ended up dropping out. And here we are. It's amazing how that happens, right?
It's full circle.
Seriously, supply chain's boring. I'm going to run a supply chain show instead. My background, I was in the military. I know you mentioned you're in Jacksonville. Actually, I served in the Navy on the USS Jacksonville, a submarine named after your namesake city. We had a signed helmet of the Jaguars in there.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if that was a good luck charm or not, but
depends on who signed it.
Right? I don't know. But after that, I got into hospitality, more like the restaurant, food service side of things, but wanted to find something a bit more 9 to 5 so I could have a social life too. And started just kind of rolling into different sales roles, shorter term, just trying to see what fit. And I answered a job ad one day for a conference company, the company I used to be with, and the rest is history. I ended up as a junior, started as just junior BDR, moving up the ranks. I've found that, well, one, I'm good at sales, but also I enjoy this kind of sales. I enjoyed bringing people together, walking into an expo hall on setup day and thinking, wow, I helped make this happen. I helped bring all these puzzle pieces together, and here we all are. And when Manifest came along, their previous event, which was the Future Logistics Summit, was a marketing partner of mine at my old show. So I called Pam to say congrats. And I wanted to pitch her on my own conference idea about corporate wellness programs and things like that. And she was like, yeah, that's great and all, but actually we want you to join us on Manifest in this crazy adventure. And the rest is history. Now we have puppy lounges, mocktails, and good conference food. And freight tech.
Yeah, all of those things are equally important, especially to a good show. And I'm curious as to how have you seen conferences evolve since some of your early days versus now? I mean, obviously Manifest is a huge event, a huge spectacle, within this space, but how have you seen it slowly creep towards that big spectacle?
Well, and here's the thing. Not all of them have evolved. There's a number of conferences, and out of respect, I'm not going to name drop any of them, but there's a number of conferences that just keep on lather, rinse, repeat year over year, and it's just a copy paste of it. And those are the ones that are struggling a bit more. Manifest, we always wanted to take some risks. Like that's just our model as Connective is we want to push the envelope. We want to be more experiential. We want to rethink how conferences are approached, and from the attendee experience, the sponsor experience, and just push the envelope. I've seen shows evolving in the sense of just new technologies coming into the shows, whether it be on lead capture, whether it be on just their apps, on their show guides, just more ways to touch your audience in a way that they'll appreciate by giving them information, connecting with them. We use our smart badges to make it easier instead of just using lead capture devices, for example, the buttons on the badges, to make connections happen without having to awkwardly scan someone's badge. And I really don't see anyone else doing things like that. Because I think the mindset of the attendee is changing too at a lot of these events, that it's less about, okay, I'm going to go to a session, I'm going to run to the hall and get a sandwich and try to hide my badge. And it's more that I, as an attendee, want to go and discover new technologies and not just be seen as like a commodity, basically. So we try to curate our expo hall to really find those new technologies, bring the players to the space, and make it a welcoming environment, being mindful of how many staff badges, which some folks aren't happy about, but we also don't want a conference full of salespeople. So it's just being mindful of those ratios and thinking about what is the attendee going to want to experience? Are they going to enjoy this? What's going to make them keep on coming back?
And so when you're joining the Manifest team, and you were supposed to have your first conference, but obviously, COVID kind of, threw a wrench in that entire plan. So you delayed it an additional year. So your first one was January 2021, I believe.
Yep.
When you're selling the idea, 2022.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, wow.
It's June of 21 got pushed to January of 22.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when you're selling a newer event with newer approaches to how you want to kind of shake things up a little bit, what was that sales process like for, trying to get these big businesses on board?
It was a bit of a fake it till you make it, not going to lie. I mean, it's because there's a lot of trust and faith. Luckily, both myself and our team, Tanzel, Pam, and Courtney as well, we all are known in our respective parts of the industry. So those relationships did help. There's people that we've worked with before, like, all right, we're going to take a chance with you. Other people, it's just really kind of showing them the vision of we are not just another show about getting a box from point A to point B faster, better, and cheaper. We're about the technology behind that, the whole tech stack in the supply chain that's really evolving it. And people start saying, I want to be a part of that. DHL supply chain, I want to be a part of that. So all these companies start coming in and growing with us, and word of mouth takes over, because you probably see we don't do a whole lot of advertising. Very organic, very word of mouth, a lot of referrals. And it just speaks for itself that, year 3, I've got 305 sponsors. We're completely sold out. We're going on another 100,000 square feet larger next year. So it just keep on evolving and growing. A lot of back and forth internally too on how can we improve this activation? How can we fit more puppies in here? What can we do to keep on making things better? And that's also why we don't do any on-site sales. I think we're one of the only shows where you can't re-up your booth and sponsorship for next year right there at the show. There's no big floor plan to pick from. We don't start that process till 2 to 4 weeks after the event, because my sponsors want a chance to sell. They don't want to be sold to, and a chance to decompress afterwards. And so they appreciate it. I can focus on customer experience and not on selling, and everyone's having a great time. But the initial process was just straight scrappy. It was just guerrilla marketing, guerrilla sales, just getting in there and just contacting people, getting the referrals, painting the picture, and also though listening too. It's not just selling from, hey, buy a booth or buy this or buy that, but what's going to add value for you? How can we evolve the show to make it also what you're seeing in the market? So it's not just our vision, but a collective vision of all of our partners.
What are some of that early feedback that you got, as far as like the booth process and building out your booth and the actual event itself? How do you go about getting that kind of feedback, and what did that feedback look like?
I mean, I just try to talk to as many people as I can. I'm not too in the weeds on the ops and logistics portion of it in terms of the booth build, because that's with our ops team and our contractors, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that. So it's just, I mean, we had a contractor we've worked with for a few years. We've recently switched for this year to a different contractor, looking to just streamline the process and change the thinking internally too, because a number of the other shows that we owned were a bit focused, very content focused on the sponsor side, whereas Manifest and this sector are very product and tech focused in terms of something tangible. So changing our thought process into, okay, how can we make this more of an expo-centric show? And just finding that balance year over year. And it's constantly evolving. We realized last year that our material handling rates were incredibly high. And we had to work with our contractors to substantially bring them down and tier them out a bit. So that way our sponsors can bring in the booths that they want to bring in. Because we have people bringing in $1 million booths, but we want to make it, we don't want our vendors to be a barrier to entry for that.
And so I imagine that, selling into, this year is incredibly easy or easier than it has been in previous years because you have that organic marketing, you have that reputation kind of built. Is that a safe assumption?
It is to a degree, but there's always still new ways to improve. Like there's never going to be enough buyers. I can give you a unicorn that poops out buyers left and right, and there's still not going to be enough. We need 2 unicorns. So there's always going to be that. Even though it's a little easier, it's still always a grind. I mean, when I'm selling, I'm always thinking, how can we do more? How can we keep on improving? I'm really lucky that I'm well taken care of here, but my mindset is always that I need to continually earn that and prove that I earn that too. That's just always been my mindset, that I want to prove my worth and my salary. And I'm also looking at other shows that I go to and other sponsors thinking, I want that big booth over here. When I was at NRF this week, and I went to Manhattan Associates, who is a sponsor this year, and I said, okay, I want to see how can we get your NRF booth or your ProMat booth here the following year. So just listening to the customer, how can we tweak things? What will entice you to get more of your business units involved, or for you to do more with us? What can we control? What can we not control? What can we collaborate on to make this happen?
Are you still a one-man sales team for Manifest, or do you have more of sales support?
This year I was. We had someone helping for a short time, but it was 99% me. Granted, the overall team helps. Pam, Tanzel, Courtney, Jay, they're all sending referrals in. I'm just the one herding all the cats. Next year, we do have another person I'm bringing on to help as well, because I also like sleep once in a while. We also have someone working with us in Europe to help bring in some more of an international representation. So, I'm happy to do European calls, but there's only so early that I can start my day.
Yeah, that's definitely a unique challenge, because Manifest is separate from any other logistics event that I've been to, where you really see the entire supply chain under one roof, and it's incredibly diverse with folks from all over the world that you see showing up for logistics. And it's sort of, I love talking about that aspect, and I love experiencing that aspect because it's so different from any other event. Is that a conscious effort to go after the international community as well as, the incumbents with the US market?
We don't want to be just the incumbents. We never did. We start with the startups. We want to grow with them. The incumbents will follow. They can be a bit longer of a process, but if we just went after the US incumbents, how would we be any different than any other show out there? There's so many startups from countries around the world, whether it be from India, from Israel, from LATAM markets, from APAC markets, that are doing amazing things, European markets. We want them here. We want to help showcase that.
Do you have any favorites or interesting companies that are coming from the international markets?
Oof. It's like, who's my favorite child? Which,
right.
Well, Carter is. He's a little easier to deal with right now. He's my favorite currently. But I don't have a particular like favorite, I could say, also because it's sometimes hard to remember like all of them in one shot. There's a few in the sustainability space I'm excited for to see what's going on in alternative fuels and especially like, clean maritime shipping as well. I'm noticing less on the autonomous vehicle space because obviously a lot of those companies have had a lot of challenges lately. So we only have one of those, for example, this year. But we have more on the EV and alternative fuel side of things coming. I'm seeing a lot. Oh, AI, of course. AI is a new blockchain. It's, celebrities naming their kids AI. But so I don't have any particular favorite international technology. I'm just trying to catch them all like they're Pokemon and just bring them all here.
Now, does it? So when Manifest comes on the scene, you guys make a huge wave, and it's. I don't think it's very surprising to start to see other conferences and other events, start to borrow some ideas, from Manifest and use them at their own conferences. Well, does that make you feel good, or it's like slightly annoyed?
There's enough puppies for everyone. You know what? We don't have any like IP about any of these. I mean, I go to other shows and I've gotten ideas too, and or even ideas on how we can do something that we were already doing better. So it's not like it's any exclusive thing we're doing that saying they can't do it. And I appreciate I appreciate the hustle. I appreciate that people are thinking, oh, we're doing something right, and so we're not the ones playing catch up. We're actually the ones leading the pack and thinking and showing how to do things differently.
Are there any things that are coming up with the 2024 show that are new and that
Oh, yeah.
maybe other events will be, copying in the future? We don't know yet, but that you're really, proud of?
I don't know about new in the sense of never seen before, but new with our spin on them and new for this year. So we have the spa, where this is kind of our take on the chair massages that you see at a lot of shows. I personally hate chair massages at shows. I find them creepy, but that's just me. But everyone else seems to like them. So we have the spa, which is our take on that. It's a whole activation we're building that has those, but they also have the foot leg massager machines. They're going to be, I think, juices or flavored waters. So it's a whole experience, not just sit here in my booth and get a back rub. So that's one of the new ideas. The puppies are always an exciting one.
My favorite.
And BlackBerry Radar is doing the spa too. I think that'll be a fun one. Another one too, and I've seen this here and there at some other shows, is the Style Studio. Originally, it was going to be a barber shop, but we didn't want to do a gendered activation. So the Style Studio, it's UShip is sponsoring this one. It's brought with barbers, stylists, and I believe manicurists. So men can get a quick shave or shape up. Women can get a whatever you do to your hair in a short period of time. I know we're not doing blowouts because you got to come in all janky in the morning, and nobody wants to do that. Or like mini manicures. So those are two new ones. The arcade, actually, we worked with our sponsor on that one, and we decided to pivot with them, and we're doing a golf simulator instead. It's a bit of a crowd pleaser. Another new one too. We're doing the backyard. So this is an indoor-outdoor activation as well that Sony's sponsoring. So it's kind of the opposite of the arcade. It's going to be in the foyer and partially outside in those roll-up garage doors. And we're going to rethink how we do this next year when we move to the Venetian. But it's a way for people to get a bit of green space in the midst of all the conference chaos. So there'll be some games, some cornhole, giant Jenga, things like that. And Sony is also using their AI cameras to help kind of heat map the games while they're being played and show people potential moves and things like that. So it's going to be really interactive. And we have an ice cream bar because ice cream, why not?
Especially if you're inside and you're in the desert, obviously it'll be cold outside, but few people will, you're not actually going outside until later on, unless you're in the Sony area, Sony is an interesting choice to choose to come to a logistics conference. Do they have a logistics arm or?
Well, remember, it's not just logistics, it's supply chain, all the technologies that are enhancing it. So this is Sony Atrios. I keep on saying Sony Atrios. They're AI cameras and use metadata to track movements throughout a warehouse and like inventory counts and whatnot. So
that's super interesting.
They have another division too in Europe, also for logistics, that we're talking to as well for next year. So yeah, you never know. I mean, Hitachi is one of our sponsors. Actually, a small research group within Hitachi. This is actually an exciting one. They're doing a startup kiosk. I mean, this is Hitachi, but it's a barely funded group within Hitachi leveraging kind of crowdsourced weather data to help predict conditions within containers.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost like tagless, so IoT without the T. So it's, tracking, visibility, temp, moisture control, et cetera, based on like weather.
That's super interesting. And that's what I love about Manifest is that you can have all of these different companies all under one roof, but then it's also from a content perspective, you don't feel like you're getting overly sold to. Is that a conscious choice on your behalf?
I mean, like I said, we limit the amount of staff tickets that we give each sponsor relative to their investment. We limit how many extra passes they can buy as well, which I know other shows do things similar, because we really target a higher level audience, your VP, EVP, and C-suite from the buy side. And a CEO of Fortune 500 doesn't want to walk through an expo hall and be surrounded and charged upon by salespeople. So we want to create that welcoming environment where they'd want to be in there. And I've been to many shows over the years where the buyers will walk into the hall and they'll flip their badge around because they don't want people to know who they are. And people don't do that here. They stay, they have fun, they go to the parties, they roll around with the puppies, they get their hair done. We want to also break things up a little bit too, so it's not just that monotony of this booth after booth after booth. Like we consciously try to not sell just booths. We really want people to step up and do more. So we're not just like every other show out there.
I think, the first time I spoke to you at the Manifest conference, you mentioned something along the lines of you wanted to make a conference kind of like CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, which is, I think, probably is the conference that has the most sort of brand recognition out of all conferences, maybe. I'm curious if there are any other shows like that you draw inspiration from.
I mean, within our sector, you could always look at like NRF, for example. ProMat and Modex more so just for the scale of some of the exhibitors. Like ProMat this past year, Locus Robotics, who's a big sponsor of ours, had an absolutely beautiful booth that spanned over 2 aisles. I couldn't even begin to guess what that cost. So just looking at the grandeur of some of those activations you see there is what I'd love to turn Manifest into as we keep growing. You look internationally at Web Summit, or even your shop talks, just those styles is what we really look at too. Health is another one. We're actually good friends with the team over there that runs Health, or Money 2020. So all those big experiential shows are how we see Manifest for supply chain.
And so as we're as the time of recording this, we're, about 2 or 3 weeks out, I think about closer to 3 weeks from the event. What does sort of the day-to-day look like for you and the Manifest team right now? What are those little things that you're sort of buttoning up?
I mean, I get up, I have my coffee, I work out, I get the kids to school, spend half the day watching Netflix, the other half the day watching BuzzFeed. My job is done. It's a lot of check, recheck, triple check. I'm very anal in the sense of sponsor branding. I try to have my eyes on every piece of signage that has sponsor branding on it. So we just spent the past few days triple checking all the big signs that have all the sponsor logos on to make sure that this is the right one, this is the right format, we didn't miss anyone, or so just making sure we didn't, there's no one's being left out that shouldn't be left out. Looking over renderings for the activations. It's a lot of housekeeping right now, a lot of prep for next year too, just setting up. I like to set my campaigns and my CRM up for next year now, so I don't have to worry about it later.
Super smart.
It's like I'm self-taught HubSpot, which is a blessing and a curse. So I'm just trying to make my job more efficient, because as we keep growing, there will be more to manage. So the more I can automate, the more I can make efficient, will make my job easier. But also just lots of communication with sponsors about, are your staff registered? Do you have a press release? Do you have this? Do you have that? And what do you need from us? So just really it's all housekeeping at this point. And I want to make sure that they have a good experience.
I mean, they're definitely whatever you guys are advising them as far as the sales and media outreach is concerned, is working because I cannot wake up in the morning without getting a few emails from folks who are going to Manifest, planning on going there, and they want to schedule a meeting, and it's quite impressive to be
I
able
mean,
to. I don't do this for any other conference. But last night I spent about 3 hours, and we were talking like 3 weeks before the event. I spent a few hours of my own time just filtering through and trying to make my schedule now just so I can, breathe a little bit, sigh of relief.
next year we're just going to upsell them for your phone number.
There was one person that did call my personal cell phone number. I was like, how did you get this number?
No,
I
I
don't
don't even
know
know
how they
how.
did it.
That
No, it
wasn't
wasn't.
us.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't you guys, but they went because I went into the app just to make sure that my phone number wasn't in there. And it wasn't, and I was like, how did this person get my phone number? So they are they're doing some pretty hardcore PR outreach. So
Well,
it was very
you have,
impressive. That doesn't happen with other shows.
no, well, you can always tell me offline who that is if I have to go read the riot act. Like, don't go stalking our partners.
No, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was definitely like okay, I need to start planning this now. The ramp up of communications but that's what happens when you have 4,500 people that are going to be there. Like you have to be very efficient with your time, and as I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah. I like to overly communicate too, because we send out our sponsored newsletters, but then I usually double down on it and just send out a simple Gmail, like a mail merge to all my sponsors of just, hey, we have our third party events website up right now, which is, and I don't know if you've seen this yet, but the common question at an event is, where's the after parties?
Mm.
Well, we made a thing. It's our community events calendar. So any
Really?
sponsor, yeah, it's on the app.
Oh,
So
perfect. I'm gonna make sure I check that out.
yeah, it's not. We don't have all the events on there yet. They're going to be coming in the next day or week or so. But if a sponsor's hosting an after party or dinner or something like that, they can list it on our thing. We don't charge them for it, and attendees can request an invitation to it. So it's like our own little Eventbrite.
That is such a unique thing because you're right. That is one of those things that we always ask. I mean, Grace and I, Grace Sharkey, who comes on the show all the time, and we have gone to Manifest together every single year, and we go to a lot of conferences together. We've also, started coordinating our plans of like which parties are we going to go to, and that Eventbrite, like I guess
Yeah.
website is going to be a huge sell for us or a huge help for us to be able to coordinate, which places that we should go, or maybe we should split up and, tag team those together
I
or,
mean,
separately.
ain't no party like a Blythe and Sharky party.
We are planning to do some recording there too. So that's another really cool aspect that you guys provide as well is you have a podcast
Yeah.
recording booth. You give each podcaster or content creator, a set amount of time. And then you also hook us up with like people who would actually make a really great guest to come on the show. But you also don't, sort of make us, talk to any of the sponsors, which is really something from a content creator perspective I really appreciate because it makes my life easier.
Yeah, nobody wants like forced like sponsored content, even for hours. We sell very. We don't sell a whole lot of like sponsored content, like sponsored sessions, because we don't want to be all sponsored content. And just a random thought, and this will get edited out later. But if you and Sharky ever do a show together, come on, does your walk on music like Blythe Shark do?
I'm gonna text Grace as soon as this episode is over with that. I'm gonna go to like Hey Jen website and then make it say that and then send it to her and she'll probably die.
Amazing. That's amazing.
All
I
right.
guess
Well,
we'll
I
just
do want I do want to get into a little bit of the marketing side of things because I know you're in sales, but from a personal aspect, I would love to be able to. I ask the guests these set of questions for typically every interview that we do, but I would love to find out. You kind of hinted at this earlier, but one of the questions is, how do you think about marketing when it comes to you and your company?
So we don't do a lot of like screaming our name marketing of, hey, this is Manifest, like come sponsor us. We put it in our newsletter or whatnot. It's more organic focused. We are looking to ramp that up a bit more next year for some marketing support on the outbound side. But I pretty much do all my own marketing. So I'm like army of one over here. I have my own nurture campaigns that I run, my own outbounds. I write my own cheesy emails. If you guys, any of my sponsors, they're dumb, but they work. They're unofficial manifest marketing emails that I send because.
What do you mean by dumb?
Well, I think it's so important to use your own personality when you're selling. And I like to have fun. I like to be a little stupid. So I'll throw some gifts in my email, some memes in there just because why not? But it works for me. Like that works. It might not work for somebody else, but that just works for me. And people get them. And even if they can't sponsor, they're like, I open your emails. I like getting your emails. Don't take me off the list. So like, great. I mean, buy something next time, but great.
That's the next progression of it.
Exactly. Like, thanks for not unsubscribing, but
right.
So I think it's just important just to have fun with it. I mean, there's all these different sales techniques that can be done, all marketing techniques. At the end of the day, it's to me about a relationship, about trust, and that you're going to do right by the customer, and that you also enjoy what you're doing. I sold cars for the longest 2 months of my life, and it was miserable when I was younger. And that's, I can't sell a product that I don't have confidence in. And I've had jobs like that too, where it was, hey, sell this $10,000 cleaner. You know what I'm talking about. That lasted a whole day, not even. But I know we're doing something fun, we're doing something different, and we're changing the industry, and I'm happy to be a part of it and bringing those customers in here. So I'm just going to have fun while I do it.
And I think it's also y'all's approach to the feedback loop. So I think I referenced Trey's show earlier that you had conducted with him about a year ago, and you have like a pretty thorough, like surveying not just the sponsors but also attendees as well to sort of figure out, how do you balance and walk that tightrope?
Yeah, we do. I mean, most shows do some sort of NPS survey after the show. And we really look into it. We understand, okay, is there something where we really dropped the ball on and we need to fix? Hopefully that person would have also reached out to us directly as well, too. And, where we could address it where we can. Are there also those instances where some people can't be pleased? And that's something that actually Jay, our CEO, taught me. In my old company, I used to go through the NPSs and I would personally call all the negative ones from sponsors to say, how can we do better? I don't do that anymore. It's very hard to turn a detractor into a promoter. And it's kind of like choosing your battles. Sometimes there's a legitimate problem that needs to be addressed. Great, we're going to address it. Sometimes they just want to complain. And you know what? Let's move on to the next one.
All right, next marketing question. What's your favorite social media platform and why?
Ooh, I mean, for work, LinkedIn, because also I don't use any other ones for work. I don't do, I have a personal Instagram and Facebook. I don't use Twitter. Like I have one, it exists. I don't use it. You'll never see me on TikTok. So, OnlyFans, maybe after this job runs out. But I'm trying to get a manifest channel on there.
Diversify your income streams.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, LinkedIn's great because you can have a bit of fun, and you've probably seen some of the posts I've done on there about like all the sponsors, like tagging like 300 companies, and I respond with gifts to people just to have some fun because again, that's me. So I think you could find that balance of being professional but having some fun too. And it's important that LinkedIn can help you keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your industry too, and new happenings as well.
All right, next one. What is your favorite SaaS tool that you use every day and can't live without?
I mean, the only one I actually use is HubSpot.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, and I use HubSpot, and the only other tools I really use are for data we use Sales Intel, which is similar to Seamless, and I use Yam for mail merges. That's really my toolbox. Nothing fancy.
I think keeping it simple is a lot of marketers and a lot of sales folks will overwhelm themselves with too many tools and too many data points.
I've gotten rid of a lot of them.
I was going to say, it sounds like based on your experience or what you've said in this interview, that you really, you focus on the one-to-one conversations and you use some tools, but you don't let it sort of rule your whole conversational approach.
I'll use tools to streamline what I'm doing. If I'm going to, I'll send a mail merge instead of emailing 3,000 people one by one. I'll send a mail merge, or I'll use some HubSpot workflows to just people manage. But in terms of AI and analyzing this and that and crystal balls and all that. I'm just going to talk to people. I'll look at your website. Cool. I like what you're doing. Let's have a conversation. I mean, the fanciest I get is use ChatGPT sometimes.
That's a pretty good one. All right. What about what is a book or podcast that has changed your perspective or you learned something really cool from it?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. It would not be work related. I actually rarely, if ever, listen to podcasts. I tend to kind of like disconnect after work. It's important to me. Mm-hmm. Like my wife loves listening to How I Built This, for example. I just, I'm going to go watch TV. I'm going to read a book. I'm more like, I read a lot of historical fiction. So yeah, this little part might get edited out because I just don't have anything good to contribute to this part of it.
Well, I think that's actually a really good, because obviously supply chain logistics is very, it's one of the oldest, professions or one of the oldest industries in our existence.
Prostitution. I mean, yeah, it's like
exactly logistics and prostitution. That'll be the title of this episode.
They go hand job in hand.
Well, what's your favorite history book that you've read,
or
maybe historical moment?
I really like Ken Follett's one of my favorite authors. He's written like World Without End, Pillars of the Earth. They're like historical epic novels, like 1,300 pages each. I've read each one of them like 3 or 4 times just because I enjoy it. I enjoy his writing. But usually I'm reading like Bon Appetit or like scrolling through a cookbook of what I want to try next because in my off time I like to cook and bake. Like I have sourdough starter I've been proofing for years, like in my kitchen, and I garden in the backyard. Like that's my instead of football, I grow peas and tomatoes.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. But there's not much. When do you start actually your garden plan?
I'll probably start after Manifest. I'll start growing stuff in the basement, like some seedlings, because I have like grow lamps and everything. It's weed in the off season, then the garden. Of course, Jersey. We can do things here now. But and then around like May or so, I'll start transferring things outside, depending on like what I planted when. This year I'm going to try to grow corn, so I'll start that outside. I do like a lot of melons. I do different tomatoes, but my kids love it too because my kids like peas because they pick them and they eat them.
Oh, that's cool. And also teaching them a very important lesson, I think, to for where your food comes from and planting something to see it grow and come to fruition.
That's why we're banned from the petting zoo. I'm like, this is where bacon comes from. But we have fruit trees back there too. So like after school, we'll just go out back and like grab a peach or grab a pear from the backyard, which is awesome.
Well, I know that you joked about editing this out, but we won't edit it out. We're going to keep all of this in because I think it's also good symbolism as to how you build relationships as well. You plant the seed and you hope to watch it grow and you hope to nurture it. And so I think that's all good things and very good qualities of a sales professional.
And both take a little bit of bullshit.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, Dan, now as we sort of round out the conversation, is there anything about Manifest that you think is important to mention that we haven't already talked about?
I'm sure you've heard it already too, but I am super excited about Chief joining us on the women's lunch. I mean, I'm just fangirling about that because Lindsay's a rock star and we're like just honored to have her. So I'm really excited for that. If you haven't seen the memo yet, but Neo is performing for the after party.
I thought I saw that and I told Grace, but we tried to find the graphic. We couldn't find it. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yes. You'll be there front row center, just like last year for Nelly. I mean, we know how you roll. We have more chief supply chain officers than we've ever had before, like more than 40 or 50 on stage already. So it's really just shaping up nicely. Just all these brands sending delegations now too, not just 1 or 2 to walk the floor, but folks like Pepsi sending more than 30 people to come to the show because they love being a part of it. So we're excited for that. I think just really taking the time to plan your show, to walk the hall, to experience the content. For anyone who hasn't yet to, make sure they download the app and book your tickets because tickets do go up Friday, like tomorrow. So buy your tickets now. Call me for a discount. But and if you want to talk about 2025, I mean, reach out to me. We'll get you on the list because we'll open that up in the early spring.
And you guys are, I think you mentioned earlier that you're going to be at the Venetian next year,
Yep,
which is
next 3 years will be at the Venetian.
Wow. And so any reason why the move? Because you're probably outgrowing your space.
Well, there's that, and also Venetian. I mean, it's 100,000 square feet more, but also there's more there, like at the venue,
Hmm.
in terms of like things to do.
That makes
Caesar's
sense.
great venue, which is a little removed from things to do.
Yeah, that I mean that's definitely a great move. I love Caesars, that area, of course, but it is a little bit of a challenge sometimes to go to some of the other venues and some of the things in the surrounding area. That the Venetian is one of my favorite properties in Vegas, so I'm
Never been.
selfishly excited about that.
I've actually never. I've like in my entire career, I've been to Vegas like 5 times.
Wow, and probably all for or most of them for Manifest.
I think like 3 out of 5 for Manifest.
Well,
Yeah. So,
for me, it was a very long history of like bachelorette parties that were in Vegas,
mhm.
and now I just go for work. So it's a completely different experience, but also a fun different experience.
Yes, and you're right. It's now being there is work.
Right, but a really fun kind of
Yes.
work because I do love Vegas. It is a cross country flight, but it's one of those things that it's well worth it. It's one of the few places that when the plane lands in Vegas, everybody claps, and so it's one of those like unique moments in unique cities.
So it's a good time over there.
All right, Dan, where can
All
folks
right.
follow more of your work, follow you, get connected, all that good stuff?
You can follow my Only Dans, but just check out the Manifest Vegas website as well. On LinkedIn too. So just everywhere that we exist, it's all Manifest and just gearing up for this year. So I'm sure that you have the link to share on the podcast as well. And hopefully we'll see a lot more folks who are listening with us in a few weeks in Vegas.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
Sounds good. I'll see you soon.